Lesson 2, Essential Question. What are vertebrates and invertebrates? Georgia Fast Fact. High-flying flippers. Dolphins, like all marine mammals, are vertebrates. There are no bones in the dorsal fin or tail flukes. Dolphins can regulate the temperature in their bodies from their fins. In the Investigate, you will build a model of a backbone. Vocabulary Preview. Vertebrate. An animal with a backbone. Page 284. Invertebrate. An animal without a backbone. Page 286. Atlantic bottlenose dolphins can be found along the coast of Georgia. Investigate. Build a model backbone. Guided inquiry. Start with questions. All mammals have a backbone. The whalebone below is just one of 60 to 80 in a whale backbone. How does a backbone help vertebrates move? How do animals without backbones move? Investigate to find out. Then read to learn more. Prepare to investigate. Inquiry skill tip. Models are useful for helping you communicate your observations during an investigation. Materials. Chenille sticks. Wagon wheel shaped pasta pieces. Soft candy rings. Make an observation chart. Follow this procedure. 1. Caution. Never put any materials you use in an investigate in your mouth. 2. Bend one end of the chenille stick. Thread a piece of pasta onto the other end and push it down to the end. 3. Thread more pieces of pasta onto the stick. Push them together. When the stick is full, bend the end. 4. Gently bend the chenille stick with its pasta pieces. What do you observe? 5. Straighten one end and remove all but one piece of pasta. Repeat step 3, but add candy rings between the pieces of pasta. Gently bend the chenille stick again. Now what do you observe? Draw conclusions. 1. Describe the difference between the model with the candy and the model made without candy. 2. Standards link. A real backbone has a spinal cord, individual bones called vertebrae, and soft discs between the vertebrae. What does each part of your model represent? 3. Inquiry skill. Scientists need to communicate their results to other scientists. Use your model to communicate how a real backbone works. Independent inquiry. Think about how a chicken's neck supports the chicken's head while letting it move. Then plan and conduct a simple investigation to test your ideas. Understand science. Vocabulary. Vertebrate, page 284. Invertebrate, page 286. Science concepts. How vertebrates and invertebrates differ. How different structures can have similar functions. Focus skill. Compare and contrast. Look for ways in which animal groups are alike and different. Animals with a backbone. What do a giraffe and a snake have in common? At first you might think, not much. Giraffes grow very tall, while most snakes are small. Giraffes are warm-blooded, they have fur, and they give birth to live young. Snakes are cold-blooded. They have scales, and most lay eggs. But as the pictures show, these two animals have one important thing in common. Each has a backbone. Scientists divide the animal kingdom into two large groups, based on the backbone. An animal with a backbone is a vertebrate. This term comes from the vertebrae, bones that make up a backbone. Scientists classify vertebrates into at least 5 phyla. Mammals have hair and produce milk for their young. Birds have feathers, which keep them warm and help most of them fly. Reptiles have scaly skin and most lay their eggs on land. Amphibians begin life in water, but when they are adults, they live on land. Fish have scales and live their entire lives in water. Focus skill. Compare and contrast. How are vertebrates alike? How are they different? Some snakes have as many as 300 vertebrae. A giraffe has 7 vertebrae in its neck. That's as many as a human has. A giraffe's neck is long because each of the vertebrae is large. Fish have gills that absorb oxygen dissolved in water. Amphibians live on land but return to water to lay eggs. Frogs and toads are amphibians. Reptiles have scaly skin. Amphibians don't. All birds have feathers, but not all birds can fly. This cardinal fluffs up its feathers to help keep it warm. Like most mammals, this agouti has hair. Instalab, strong and flexible. Roll and tape a sheet of construction paper into a tube. Stand the tube on end. See how many books it will hold. Cut slits about 2 centimeters apart along both sides of the tube. Test again with books. What conclusion can you draw about backbones made of many vertebrae instead of just one? Animals without a backbone. Vertebrates are the animals most familiar to us, but they are actually the smallest part of the animal kingdom. Most species of animals are invertebrates. An invertebrate is an animal without a backbone. The simplest phyla of invertebrates include the sponges, the living kind, not the kind many people use for cleaning, jellyfish, anemones, and coral. They live mostly in the oceans. Some simple invertebrates, including several phyla of worms, live on land too. Roundworms are plentiful in the soil. You can't easily tell their heads from their tails. Earthworms are different. They have a head end and a tail end. Their bodies are divided into segments that look like rings. Giant earthworms can grow to be several meters, yards long. A more complex invertebrate phylum is the mollusks. Mollusks include soft-bodied animals such as the octopus and the squid. Octopods are smart. They can solve problems and remember things, and their vision is thought to be as good as a human's. Some mollusks have shells. Examples include snails, clams, and oysters. The largest invertebrate, the giant squid, is a mollusk. Sea stars, sand dollars, and sea urchins belong to a phylum of invertebrates called echinoderms. They have different shapes, and most have body parts in multiples of 5. Many echinoderms have hard spines. The largest phylum of invertebrates is the arthropods. Arthropods have jointed legs and 2 or more body segments. The joints and segments let them move freely. All arthropods have skeletons, but unlike a vertebrate skeleton, an arthropod's skeleton is on the outside of its body. The skeleton isn't made of bone. It's a hard material made by the skin. To grow, an arthropod must shed its skeleton. Then its skin produces a new, slightly larger skeleton. Scientists classify arthropods into several classes. If you eat seafood, you probably know about one class, crustaceans. Many crustaceans have claws, and some have antennae on their heads. Examples include crabs, lobsters, and shrimp. The largest class of arthropods is the insects. Adult insects, such as beetles, mosquitoes, butterflies, roaches, and bees, have 6 legs. They also have 3 body segments: head, thorax, and abdomen. The legs and wings are in pairs on the thorax. Spiders are arthropods, but they aren't insects. They are arachnids. Most arachnids have 8 legs. The class also includes mites, ticks, and scorpions. Focus skill. Compare and contrast. How are invertebrates alike? How are they different? Math in science. Interpret data. What does this graph tell you about how common vertebrates are? The jellyfish is an invertebrate. How are invertebrates different from vertebrates? About 3/4 of all invertebrate species, including bees, are arthropods. Animals. This queen conch is a mollusk. It lives in the Caribbean in sand, grass beds, and coral reefs. This cuttlefish isn't really a fish. It's actually a mollusk. It's a close relative of the octopus and the squid. The most common arthropods are insects, such as the praying mantis and the butterfly. Many insects have wings and can fly. Structure and function. When classifying living organisms, scientists look at both structure and function. Structure is the form of a body part. Function is what a structure does. A wing, for example, is a structure. Its function is flight. Living organisms that aren't closely related sometimes have body parts that perform the same function. However, the structures are usually different. For example, grasshoppers and frogs both jump by using powerful hind legs. Scientists who study the skeletons, joints, and muscles of grasshoppers and frogs observe that their legs are not constructed the same way at all. Because function can be misleading, scientists rely mostly on structure when classifying. Bird beaks are a perfect example of this. Look at the birds below. All four have beaks that are specialized for the types of food that they eat. In this case, a scientist must look at structure to classify each bird. The hummingbird has a long, thin beak. It drinks nectar from the inside of flowers. A toucan, on the other hand, has a large, powerful beak for cracking open nuts. Hawks eat live prey like mice and snakes. Their beaks are designed for tearing. Herons are water birds. Their long, pointed beaks allow them to catch fish and other prey underwater. Focus skill. Compare and contrast. How are structure and function different? How are they related? Science up close. Form and function. The function of wings is flight, but the structure of wings varies. The wing of a dragonfly is a flat piece of the same material that makes up the insect's external skeleton. The wing of the hummingbird has hollow bones inside. On the outside, it is covered with feathers. For more links and animations, go to www.hsbscience.com. GPS wrap-up and lesson review. Essential question. What are vertebrates and invertebrates? In this lesson, you learned about the differences between vertebrates and invertebrates and other ways that scientists classify them.